It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this. I'm Jeff Grubb. I write for GamesBeat.com. I'm over here on Giant Bomb doing GrubbSnax for you all. This is a show where we talk about games with one another. We ask questions. We try to figure out what's going on. I try to bring a little bit of fun stuff each week. Not a ton of stuff this week, but, I'm busy. I'm moving. I'm still moving. So I'm going to be moving for a while. Haven't quite moved out of this basement yet, so we still have my setup, but that's going to start. You see, actually, the pictures are coming off the wall. Stuff like that's happening. So slowly each week, there's going to be less and less until I don't even exist anymore. It's just like Back to the Future. But yeah, this show, I'll get to your questions here in a little bit. You can ask them by hitting that Ask a Question button at the top of the page. If you're on Twitch and you're looking like, what the hell is this guy talking about? You got to go to giantbomb.com/chat, sign up for a premium account, and that's how you can interact with the show. If you're watching on Twitch, though, and you want to stay free, I have no problem with that. Hello. Hi. How you doing? I love you, too. I just can't see anything you're writing. But if you are here, if you're live watching, please send in your questions. We'll try to get to as many as possible. I think we got to all of them last week. It was the first time we were able to do that. I think we are in a bit of a lull as we kind of wait for some of these big companies to make a move. And after a bunch of companies have made big moves recently, right? Square Enix and everything. And yes, a lot's been happening. We'll get to all of it. We're starting right now. Let's just get into it. So last week, if you watched all the way to the end, I talked about the plot summary for Super Mario Brothers. I also said I think the movie might be called Mario. The name internally, at least on some resources, has changed from Mario 2023 to Super Mario Brothers 2023, which, if you recall, is the name of the 1993 movie. So 30 years later, we're getting a remake of that movie. I'm sure it's going to be a shot-for-shot CGI remake, I'm sure. But yeah, Super Mario Brothers. So prepare your databases, prepare your backends to be able to accept the year as the identifying marker there. That could still change. They could add a subtitle or something like that. But right now internally they're calling it Super Mario Brothers. As for the veracity of that plot summary, well, again, not my specialty, movies. That's not something that I'm trying to figure out or anything like that. But I'll say that plot summary was posted elsewhere online and got DMCA'd by someone. Someone DMCA'd it. Now, to me, that adds a little bit of like, okay, there's something there, but it's not confirmation either. And maybe the whole thing isn't real. Maybe just parts of it are accurate and they DMCA'd it for that. But that DMCA is like, okay, there's something happening there. So there's a little bit more juice on that flame, which is, again, a good idiom that people don't say that one enough. So yeah, I think again, I'm not going to talk about it here because it just spoils the entire plot. My co-host on Last of the 10 Dogs was listening and he stopped listening because he wanted to remain, in his words, pure. So yes, if you don't want to hear that stuff, like, don't go back and watch the end of the last show, but I won't be talking about the specifics here. To me, it sounds like a modern animated movie, though. It sounds a lot like the Lego movie or something like that, and that could be good. A handful of songs, some certain characters that you would imagine would sing based on their casting. Like, they got Jack Black to play Bowser. That's not a spoiler, right? Come on, we all knew as soon as they got Jack Black he was gonna sing. So gotta make Gerstmann mad, but what can you do? All right, let's see here. Star Wars Day happened yesterday, and everyone tuned into my stream to watch me play old Star Wars games for the DS and the Game Boy Advance. That's how everyone chose to celebrate, and I appreciate that. We played the Episode 3 game for the DS. Very good, actually. Star Wars Apprentice of the Force. Both of these are from Ubisoft. That one for Game Boy Advance, it has like the rotoscoped animation, so it looks pretty cool. Not a very good game, though. It's kind of like you're just going after keycard after keycard, and it's kind of a boring puzzler, but it looks really striking. They didn't necessarily keep that, like, the fluidity of the animation they kept with Episode 3. And we don't have to talk about these old games, but I was just like, oh yeah, I remember that Episode 3 game is actually pretty good. And the animations are a big part of that. But hey, no real big announcements for video games regarding Star Wars yesterday for Star Wars Day, right? And we weren't expecting that. Like I've been saying, it's going to be happening at Celebration, not on Star Wars Day. I think that that's gonna still remain to be the case. At this point, like, what more can we say about this other than, yeah, they're gonna come out, they're gonna talk about the specifics of Star Wars Jedi blank, and I'm like, continue on to tease, because I don't know what point it would be just to say the name of the game, because they're gonna tell you, right? So should I feel like I shouldn't say anything, but is it also that much of a spoiler? Maybe I should brace you all, because I actually don't think it's a great name. Yeah, you know what? Go ahead and guess in chat. So Doomsday Dan just said Star Wars Jedi Revengeance. Very good. If anyone guesses it, I'll just say you got it right. So let's do, that'll be a fun way to keep you guys all interacting and stuff. So if you guess Star Wars Jedi blank, if you guess it, I'll let you know. But they're gonna bring that to Star Wars Celebration, just like we talked about last week. Like, what are they gonna do there? Again, it's not gonna be a panel. I do imagine we'll see some like gameplay. They will probably get the name. They will probably tell us 2023. We'll kind of continue to get that. It's not Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order 2, so I can help you with that right there. And again, I have teased it elsewhere. You guys are going fast. All right. Yep. No, I still don't see it. Star Wars Jedi Reordered Third Strike. That's actually a pretty good one. They should use that. And yes, Star Wars Jedi. He joins a jizz band, which is the name of the space jazz. So don't freak out there. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna wait till later this month to kind of get that more information on that game. But I'm really looking forward to that. But again, brace yourself. Not coming this year. And then, but speaking of EA and kind of like where they're at, I was like just kind of getting a little bit curious about the state of Battlefield. I asked a little bit about that, kind of poked around as best I could. They want to stick to their promise that they made around the end of last year. That was, hey, we're going to fix Battlefield 2042. And they do intend to still do that. But there is some like hesitancy internally about like what happens then, what happens after that, and how many resources should we be putting into fixing this game? Should everything be going towards fixing 2042? Or should we peel off some to figure out what happens with Battlefield next? Or should we use some, like, it's going to take a lot of time and money to fix this game. And that's a big bet, right? That's an opportunity cost. And does spending that time and money on this take away an opportunity to invest that money elsewhere? Maybe they could invest in acquisitions. They could go out and acquire other licenses and stuff like that. Like all that stuff is on the table, and they're considering it internally. And the big question is like, what happens with Battlefield after that? Do they immediately try to go into another Battlefield? Do they get a full team up and running, working on a Battlefield sequel? That stuff's still really uncertain. They're not sure. They're still trying to piece that together about what happens next. At least that's from what I've been able to piece together. That seems to be the case. Battlefield 2042 itself is, it's kind of just chugging along slowly. And does it make a ton of sense to put a huge amount of resources into that? Do they think they can resurrect it? They could probably get it back up so that it's more played than it is now. But is it going to be able to compete with some of the other shooters on the market? Like we're seeing like Halo also struggle, right? But Halo puts out a little bit of content. It gets played. It's a free-to-play game already. So it's like there's a chance that a year from now, it could be a completely different story. With Battlefield 2042, it feels like it's a little bit more of a struggle because this is still a premium price game. You have to fix it for the people who already paid, and now you have to like make it appealing to an audience that is going to pay again, or they're going to buy it on sale for $15 and come in and start playing. Like that's a much different prospect. And so they are trying to figure out exactly how much they want to put into this game, and then how much they want to keep separate so that either those resources get used to work on something else, or they get used to work on the next Battlefield game. All right, let me scroll through some of these. Nope. Jizzwellers, no. Star Wars Jedi, can I take your word? Palpatine Rising, I hope not. God. The Squeakquel, that's pretty good. Elden Lightsaber. Star Wars Jedi Strike Back. Nope. No, so far, no one's got it. And I, as I've said before, I have teased the name out there. So if you want to like go troll the internet for my clues, feel free to do that. Or just keep coming up with silly names. I appreciate that as well. All right. Let's get to the questions. Let's do that. You guys got a bunch of them. Let's see here. From Tokoda, will we ever get a new pod racing game? I think we will, actually. I think we'll get the way that they've been working with the Star Wars games, right, is like they want to get a bunch of licensed stuff up and running, and they want to have these big games in these certain genres where big open world games and big narrative driven games and an Amy Hennig game. And now they have a lot of those in the works, right? Star Wars Eclipse from David Cage or whatever. Regardless of like what that ends up being, it does like check a box of what Lucasfilm wants from this stuff. But many of those big, like it would be awesome to have, and these are the things we really want. Those boxes have been checked now, and that should free up some of these like deal making resources to go out and make smaller deals, I would assume. I think that they are right to want as many Star Wars games as possible. In a pod racing game, I mean, there's definitely a lot of love for that game. There's a lot of love for that scene specifically in Phantom Menace. Like, even if you don't like that movie, it's still, and that maybe that scene goes on too long, but the concept of pod racing is still pretty good. I think they could easily I mean, and that generation is now totally old enough where it's like, yeah, give them a new pod racing game, and they're like the core gaming audience right now. All right. Let's see. From Sneed's Feed and Seed. Do you have any insight over why Randy Pitchford holds on to the Duke Nukem IP? Does trafficking Duke out to guest star in other games really make it worth it? I just think he sees a lot of himself in the character, and he just wants to really propagate it everywhere so that people can know what's in his heart. Listen, I don't know. I think that he thinks Duke Nukem is a pretty big deal, and he wants to and he did work. I think that's right. Yeah, he worked on the original. I think he just has fondness for the character, and I think he kind of sees it almost a little bit as a mascot. But beyond that, no insight. And I've chosen, for my own sanity, to have as few insights into the inner workings of Randy Pitchford's mind as possible. From PJ24, why does Namco keep saying Tekken across Street Fighter is a thing? It can't still be a thing, can it? Yeah, I don't know. This is to me, this speaks to the weirdness of making video games, where if you have a concept and you did any work on it at any point and then you put it on the shelf, well, is that canceled? I mean, listen, the work is over there, and one day I do intend to go back to time travel. It's like in Bill and Ted. In Bill and Ted, the end of the movie, the way they saw this for the first movie, this is a spoiler, but it's from 55 fucking years ago. Get over it. At the end of the movie, they solved this by saying, after the movie's over, we will go into the time machine and go and do these things so that we can solve the problem now. We don't ever actually see them go in the time machine and put the keys for like the police station or whatever in the bush that they're standing in. But they say, we intend to do this later, so the keys will be right here as we go to look for them right now. That is the logic I think that happens with a lot of like, okay, the game's not canceled. We do intend to one day go back and make this game. So when you ask us the question now, well, no, it's going to happen. But really, it's in this weird purgatory that a lot of games end up in that are really actually probably canceled. But, you know, and a lot of times, a lot of that work gets taken and put into other stuff. So is it really canceled? I mean, that's what happened with Overwatch, right? I mean, they canceled the big Titan MMO and then they turned that into Overwatch. And I think if you were to say Titan was canceled, that's true. If you were to say that Titan was transformed into this new thing, that's also true. So I think Titan was the name of that. So yeah. And also, that's right. Harada rule number 1, don't ask me for shit. So keep true to that rule. From Doug Foot, good morning, Mr. Snacks. The Xbox and PS5 both support VRR for better experiences at higher frame rates. However, the demos for UE5 feel like we are about to go back to 30 frames per second target for new games. Which do you think will be more common in 3 to 5 years? I think that, so the thing with Unreal Engine is it's very scalable. That means you can make it run on a Switch, you can make it run on a phone, and then on a very powerful computer, it can run very, very fast and very well. But that would also mean it's very easy to just program in a 60 frame per second mode, and then you just drop down some of the features. If you're forcing me to pick between, do we get like higher frame rates that like are unlocked and then take advantage of VRR on a 120 hertz screen, or 30 frames per second in a couple of years, 3 to 5 years, I think this is a tough one, because I personally think that now that the 60 frames per second toothpaste is out of the tube, it's actually going to be pretty difficult to go back, in the same way that like at the beginning of the Xbox One PS4 generation, when people were getting very upset when some games were running at like 600p or 720p instead of 900 or 1080p or something like that. It became like a big sticking point. The gamers that are playing games now are very different than the ones who were playing on the last gen consoles, in terms of like their expectations and their taste. And a lot of this comes down to like stuff like Fortnite. You want to have a pretty high frame rate, you play better. And that's millions and millions and millions of players who are now used to having 60 frames per second. And you hear it from people who had a PS4, now have a PS5, like, oh, I thought I didn't care about frame rate, and now I'm realizing, yes, I really, really do. I think in 3 to 5 years, it'll be very difficult for them to go back to 30 frames per second. That's not to say some games won't, and I think some games will split the difference. They will likely, what they'll do is take advantage of VRR, hope most people have a VRR television in 3 to 5 years, which I suppose is possible, and then do 40 frames per second. I think that 40 to 45 frames per second, and with VRR on, is actually just fine. It looks pretty close to 60. It looks way smoother, surprisingly, than 30. So that's, I guess, that doesn't make, like 40 frames is 25% faster than 30 frames per second, right? Or 33 frames. 33.3% faster than 30 frames. So it's like, that is a significant increase. And when I'm playing on the Steam Deck is definitely the thing that made me notice this, even before Digital Foundry did their thing about like 40 frames per second is ideal. Like getting 40 frames per second in Elden Ring, and it looks super smooth. With VRR, you can increase that smoothness even more. So, and like that, losing the jitteriness, no frame tearing, stuff like that. So I think that they will probably try to do that, like 45 frames per second, and then have a bunch of graphical features and stuff like that, and they'll be just fine. That would probably be the right move, actually. From Feature Creep, how are you getting your revenge on Imran? I got a previous revenge. I already got him thrown out of the presidency of Pakistan. He loves that about it. I bet he loves that reference to his name being the same as the president of Pakistan. I have stuff in the works. I have plans, and I will punish him. This will not go on. People are wondering what I'm talking about. On Monday, on Kind of Funny, twitch.tv/kindoffunny, I wrestled in their WWE like wrestling universe maker thing, and I was just, I want to settle this in the pit. That's right. That would be awesome. Yes. Absolutely. Get Imran on the phone. Let's make that happen. Andy Cortez says he's the #1 gaming journalist. I took offense to this. I challenged him, because I get the dubs, and then I was beating the crap out of Andy. Of course I am. He's a tiny little boy, and I'm a big man. But then Imran, his music played, and he peeked out from behind the curtain because the game broke, and he didn't actually come out to the ring to interfere. But he peeked out, and that was enough to distract me. And then Andy beat me, which is just unacceptable. But now instead of being mad at Andy, I'm mad at Imran, and who knows what happens next? Other than we're gonna settle this in the pit. From Zcrits, new F-Zero, is it happening, yay or nay? I think that a new F-Zero will happen eventually on an infinite time scale. On an infinite timeline, does another F-Zero happen? Yes. Really just the big question is, does the Earth end before that? That's the big question. The way Nintendo goes back to its old franchises and at a sort of steady pace where, yes, it's doing sequels to games that came out recently that sold very well. Like we're getting Splatoon 3, of course we are. But then, and the Marios and Zeldas are, of course, always going to keep coming. Another Mario Kart is always going to keep coming. But then they look around, they look over their shoulder and like, okay, you know what? Let's bring back Advance Wars. Let's do Advance Wars 1+2. Now, that game hasn't come out yet, but you get the idea. If something like Advance Wars 1+2 can happen, F-Zero can absolutely happen. They're probably just looking for the right opportunity in terms of matching up that IP with the right developer, with someone who has an idea. I know they keep saying like, oh, we need to have a really great new idea to bring that series back. And it's like, no, you don't. You don't need to do that. Just make another F-Zero. That's the idea at this point. But we'll see. It's definitely, it's been enough time where I think they can maybe get over that whole thing of we need to have a brand new idea that really sets the new one apart. No, just make it, here's the new idea. Make the new Switch 2 or whatever have a 120 hertz screen and make the game run at 120 hertz. There's your idea. You're welcome. From Minto, if Square Enix gets picked up by Xbox Game Studios, we'll have to change its abbreviation to SEX. Yes, legally it will have to do that. The gamers will not accept anything less than sex. From Tom Payne, Embracer, unlike EA and Activision, doesn't have a reputation of shutting down acquired studios. Are they actually better at this, or have they just not had opportunities to squander? I don't want Deus Ex going the way of Populous. Yeah, to me it's like we still are very much in the unknown period with Embracer. I think that they just have not quite reached that point where they're like contracting. The thing with Embracer is that they can take something like these big studios from like Eidos and what's the other, Crystal Dynamics, from someone like Square Enix. And Square Enix is trading on the Japanese stock exchange, and their stock is not really super highly valued and stuff. And it's like they aren't like raising money from selling their stock or anything like that. So, but then Embracer is trading in Europe, and I was talking to Dean, who knows more about this stuff than me, but Dean was kind of explaining this, and this makes a lot of sense. Embracer trades on a European stock exchange where video game companies continue to go up and up in price. And so Embracer is able to like borrow against that increase at a really low interest rate and able to fund a lot of its growth because the people who are investing in this stock exchange value game companies more highly than in Japan, which, you know, Japan's just a much more mature market. That's one of the reasons that happened. But that could change, right? At a certain point, if market conditions change, if the wind begins blowing the other way for these investors in Europe, then maybe Embracer has to now like have the rubber meet the road, and they need to start putting out games. And then are they able to operate in that reality? We still have no idea if that's the case. We have no idea if they're going to be able to put out games in the best of times where it's like, okay, now if we have to sort of just survive on the income we can produce from these games now, are we going to be able to do that? We have no clue. And honestly, Embracer might not know either. So if we get to that point, I do imagine Embracer probably would start closing some studios or selling them off again if there's anyone to sell to. Okay, let's see. From Dun and Dun. Hey there, Jeff. Any rumblings about Analog, specifically Analog OS, and the numerous promised features that have yet to be added to the Pocket since launch? I'm not sure. That stuff is probably pretty difficult to do, pretty difficult to make, and probably requires a certain amount of talent that is probably pretty expensive right now. So with those, excuses and caveats out of the way, the stuff does seem like it's coming pretty slowly, and I haven't heard anything new. I will reach out and ask because I think most people have a pretty good relationship with Analog. They're very good about the stuff. They 8BitDo people. I will reach out to their CEO. He whenever there's a new product, he's like, hey, you want to see this thing? I'm like, yes, I would like to see the thing. So I'll ask him, hey, what's up about the latest updates about Analog OS? A lot of times we'll be like, we'll talk about it later. But if there's anything to say, I'll bring it next week. Speaking of this, I actually did find a way to reach out to 3 Fields about the Dangerous Driving 2, right? And the PR company says that they no longer represent them, and they haven't since they announced the game. So like that was like what, 2019, 2020, something like that. Or no, that was in the pandemic. So it was like last year, right? So 2021. But either way, the PR company that represented them no longer represents them. So I reached out directly to 3 Fields, and they have an automated email response set up that was just like, hey, we are still working on that new game. I know a lot of people are asking about that. So here's like an automated response. We get a lot of questions about that, so we have an answer. And then I don't know if they got back to me. Let's see. 3 Fields. Oh, wait, the wrong email. Hang on. 3 Fields. Let's see. Nope. So no update since then. That was I emailed them last week about that, and yeah, they said thanks for getting in touch. We are still hard at work on our next game and loving life. We are looking forward to sharing more about what we are doing later this year. Okay, so this is the email they've been sending out for a while. I think they said they're going to do this, share information later this year. I think we can give them a little bit more time, and then if we don't start to hear about it, then maybe that speculation I did previously on Dangerous Driving 2, where it was like, I don't think they're ever gonna it seems tough to release a game like that now if they haven't released it, in the years since the last one. But, they say they aren't going to talk about it till later this year. Let's give them a chance. Maybe the spring, the summer showcases might be an ideal time to bring that back out. Okay. Let's keep going with these questions. From Big Denim. Microsoft E3 conference is only 90 minutes. Will they take up a big chunk of that to do a Starfield demo like we saw with Fallout 4? Or do you think they do an extended demo through its own separate stream on a different date? I think that we will get a pretty significant chunk of gameplay at the E3 conference, but maybe not quite as significant as what Fallout 4 got. It's quite possible that they will say, hey, and then join us later for our Nintendo Treehouse Live equivalent. Like Microsoft could do that now for sure. Where, hey, for the next day and a half, next 2 days, we are going to be live streaming nonstop, answering your questions, all these big games that are coming up. Starfield's the biggest, so we're going to spend a lot of time on that. Tune in. I would imagine that would make a lot of sense. So, but a lot of it still, they'll show a lot of it at the showcase too. 90 minutes is about 30 minutes less than last year, right? They did did they do 2 full hours last year? I think that's right. So, I don't know. Maybe they're going for a brisker pace, or maybe they don't have as much. We'll have to see. From Mekon, hello, Mr. Snacks. Enjoy the show. One of the best parts of the week in general. So chili or curry for you? Well, thank you for saying that, Mekon. I like both. I like both a lot, but if I had to choose, I would go with curry. Curry's like the spices in curry. Like you could put a lot of different kinds of spices in chili, but the curry spices specifically just hit my palate exactly the way I want them to be hit. It's just the ideal food for me and like all forms of curry too. Indian curry, Japanese curry, kind of doesn't matter. Maybe we should get some Japanese curry for lunch. I should look into that. From Abs B. Hi, Jeff. A while back there was some Twitter thing to gauge the interest of another Def Jam fighting / wrestling title. Did anything come of this, or am I destined to fly the flag alone for this, as well as another NBA Street? Many thanks for all that you do. Yeah, I mean, listen, you're not alone. I think the Def Jam thing seems like it's something that could definitely still happen if everyone involved kind of got back on the same page. I think an NBA Street is more likely, even though that's still probably pretty unlikely. But NBA Street Volume 2 is like an all-time great classic game, so I think that there's a chance that, the people that worked on that might want to bring it back one day. Def Jam just has a lot of licensing issues where... and it has a lot of like, maybe even genre specific issues where it's like, okay, what is the ceiling for a fighting / wrestling game, in terms of what can we expect on this return on investment? I think that it, like, at this point, a game like that, you make it very, entertaining to watch. You add in a lot of customizable features. Like you basically can make it like, a full-fledged WWE game where you have like, you could do your own wrestling league with all these famous rappers and musicians. I think there's a possibility where it could play really well on Twitch or something like that, and it could do really well. But I don't think that there's much chance of it happening anytime soon. From Warm Lettuce, Warm Lettuce? I don't like that. When's the Grubb / Baccalaureate podcast coming, where you could discuss the benefits of pre-game spicy pork and broccoli meals? So there was a 6-period hockey game earlier this week where we went into triple overtime, and the goalie that was playing, it was for who was that for? It was was it Penguins? Yeah, the Penguins goalie. The Penguins goalie got hurt after like the 4th period. So for the 5th and 6th period, they had to bring in a backup, and that the player, the one they were already playing was already kind of a backup. So this guy, I think Louis Domingue, he came in and he's like, the game went twice as long as it was supposed to, so people were getting hungry. So between the 5th and the 6th period, they brought out some food, and the goalie in the post-game interview was talking about how he had some spicy pork and broccoli And he was like, it wasn't very good. And then people found that he has his own like cookbook and stuff. And this is like goalie who has spent more time in like the minor leagues than in the NHL. So of course it's a fun story. And of course he does like one of the best post-game interviews ever. Cause most of the time it's just like these pros were like, everyone tried their best. And this guy's sitting here complaining about the meal he had between the 5th and the 6th period. Goalies are maniacs. And that's one of the best example of it. From Goodbye Reptilian, long time, first time. And I appreciate you asking a question. Goodbye Reptilian. What do you think the next weird, this game will make you healthy trend will be? Brain Age, Ring Fit, Wii Fit, Dance Central. What's next? Yeah. I don't think it'll be like a return back to like Brain Age, because those games have to like some like what is it? The FDA has some FDA problems. That's why we never got the new Brain Age. There was a Brain Age game in Japan that came out in Europe, I think. Didn't come out here, and specifically because the FDA. Because it makes claims it can't really back up. So the sort of like brain health stuff probably won't happen. That's why you don't see like those Neurosity or whatever that is. You don't see those ads anymore because it was a lie. Brain Age also a lie. But yes, so like dancing and like getting movement and stuff. It's tough to say. Like if I could come up with the idea, I probably would make a lot of money. Like what did Nintendo do with Ring Fit? They brought in like a Pilates ring. So it's probably just like, what is a popular thing that they could bring? It probably would be like a standalone sort of thing where it doesn't actually plug into your system. It doesn't work with a Switch. It's just like a micro console, and then it's able to track your movements. Like maybe it is someone buys all of the Kinects in the world and they just put an HDMI port in the back of the Kinect and plug it in, and it's just like a standalone thing. And everyone's like, look at this fancy new technology. Or maybe it's like one of those mirrors you put on the wall that like turns into a TV and shows you what you're supposed to be doing, and has like the resistance bands, but like miniaturized and turned into a video game or something like that. I think that's what's next. And I think you should invest all your money in it. From Matthew GM. I'm sorry. The lawyers tell me I can't tell you to invest all your money in things because I am not an investment professional. From Matthew GM, do you know of any teams working on the next evolution of game monetization? Feels like the Battle Pass has been king of the hill for a while. I mean, they're always working on new ideas. The next evolution of game monetization was absolutely supposed to be NFTs. But okay, let's talk about NFTs. Because we just had a meeting at work about this, and again, I was talking to Dean, and you know, Dean, he likes to cover NFTs. And the reason he does is because we have investors at our GameSpeed Summit, and they talk about the number of pitches they get. And they said 90% of the pitches they're getting right now from the game makers are stuff that involve NFTs and blockchain. To me, this, though, is a lagging indicator. So, like, they are building their pitches around things they think they can get funded, right? They think this is what investors want to hear, so that's what we're going to make. But when we look at the reality of how much money is being spent on NFTs, like they've already wrung everything they could out of art, and now they've wrung everything they can out of these weird ape things, those, you know, the weird ape pictures, and both of those have crashed and gone nowhere. And now it's like, okay, are we really going to let them do this to gaming? And the answer is almost certainly no. But you know, that was supposed to be the next thing. So in terms of like what's next and like who's working on it, it's getting a bit of a reset right now, because that idea has become sort of a non-starter, very controversial, seems like it has very little chance of penetrating existing gaming markets. If NFTs are going to work, it's going to work with a new audience that isn't, you know, for lack of a better term, as savvy as current gamers in terms of like knowing when a company is trying to take advantage of you. So if we're talking about the evolution of how we interact with games and how we, you know, give our credit cards over for games, they're going to stick with battle passes for a while. They work. They make quite a lot of money. They are not controversial. And when they are, it's like very minor. It's like, oh man, it was a limited time only. I have a busy life. That's bad. And then a game comes along, Halo's like, oh, well, we'll just let you do whatever battle pass you want whenever you want. It's like, oh, okay, that solves the problem. Now I just want more content. And so it's like very easy to deal with the complaints against battle passes. And so I think most of these companies are going to be happy to just stick with the status quo for a few years. And then when it becomes time to figure out like what's next in terms of growth, we are maximizing what we can get from battle passes. You'll see some stuff at that point. But Yeah. Okay. If I had to say what I thought was going to be next, it's going to be user generated content markets. It's going to be, every game's going to be Roblox in 5 to 10 years. I know it sounds like a nightmare because it is a little bit, but mostly it just means like creating a market where the community can put effort into a game and then they can get paid for their efforts. And then the game can continue to grow and live forever. Cause basically we have found a way to turn mods into this ever-growing economy. That has its issues. A lot of people don't like paying for mods, but they won't. For the most part, it won't be called mods. It'll just be called UGC or whatever. What does Minecraft call its marketplace? I think it's just a marketplace, but a lot of that stuff is created by the community. So I think most games will be looking to integrate that sort of thing going forward, so I think that's probably what's next. It's just Kevin V. Hey, Grubb, more of an open question for anyone watching / able to answer. Where is Gersman's Cum Lord foot pedal sound effect from? I couldn't call into the dump truck or email about this, so this is the next best thing. All right, chat. Where is Cum Lord from? Is that not just Jeff Keighley saying, Master Chief comes? That's what I have on my foot pedal. Christian knows what I'm talking about in chat. All right, help a man out as I continue to answer questions. From Feature Creep, as someone with 2 daughters, how do you feel about them having less rights than guns? Not great. Feeling pretty fucking pissed and frustrated and mad. And also at a point where I can't even really think about it that much anymore. I was definitely feeling that way before this. Like I was, there are so many obvious problems with so many obvious answers. And the answer is almost always just do the right thing instead of the worst thing. And consistently, even with Biden in charge and all this stuff, we either do the worst thing or the lazy thing. And we just are just happy with the status quo, which is basically meant to protect corporations and not us. So I've been tuning out. I mean, it's just the reality. I've been tuning out of most political conversations, but then this happens and you kind of can't. And it's, it just makes me mad. From Carson9, how's the play date? Any hardware issues? Did you get early access to season 1 games? Okay, let's talk about it. I lost my play date for a little bit. Turns out it was in that hoodie I was wearing for a couple of shows, the one with the Southwest pattern. And I picked that up to kind of go because it got cold again here in Colorado a little bit, and I dropped, but the play date fell out of the pocket and hit the cement of my driveway. And then since then, the crank has been inaccurate. So I put the crank away and you take it out and now it is, it's like centered, it was justified. What is the word? And then I start cranking it like I do. And I'm playing the surfing game, which I really like. And then all of a sudden I'm cranking it up, but my surfer's cranking it down. And it's not supposed to do that. It's not how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be true. So no matter where you are on the 360-degree wheel, that's where your server is supposed to be pointing. So I think I broke my play date. Is what happened. Yeah. I'm bad at life. That's just kind of what it is. All right, let's keep going here. From Looter Jennings, what's your hottest gaming take? Oh, I don't know. There's never been a good video game story. I don't even really believe that anymore. I just because there's never been a good serious video game story. Do I believe that? Let me think. What are some good examples? I'm terrible at recalling this stuff from my memory. And I bet if you go and read a review I've written, I've almost certainly said this is the first good serious video game story, something along those lines. So Aladdin for Genesis is just okay is a pretty hot take apparently. I skip cutscenes a lot of times now these days. I don't know. Red Dead 2 was not a good well, maybe it was a good story. It just did not hook me at all. That's probably actually is my hottest take is Red Dead 2 isn't just not for me. Red Dead 2 is a bad game. Red Dead 2 is bad for gaming. It's actually my real take there. And I've written a full thing about that I feel is a full justification of that take. And you can look it up where it's Red Dead 2 is a disappointment, I think I said. And I wrote it pretty quickly after it came out, and I continue to hold to it. It is, it is a bad example for where, like, because people hold it up as this thing, and other companies are going to try to emulate it, and you can't. First of all, you don't have that much money, and even if you do, it is a waste of your money because it's actually completely infuriating to play. And they try to make it like, oh, you're playing such a realistic world. Look at the animations when you pull stuff out of drawers. And this is my example I can remember because I wrote it down. So if you've heard this from me before, I'm sorry. I am going to repeat myself, but it applies to the entire game. But it's like, look at yourself, go into this drawer and pull out this thing, and like, oh, the really thick animations that we show you of this person doing that. It's like, that's not how I search through drawers. I go through and I make a mess, and I just go through quickly and I throw things around. And when I have a game that's just like, okay, we're going to have you go through the drawer by just basically touching it, I fill in the blank with my brain. My imagination fills it in. Like, I just went through the drawer in a messy way. When you stop to show me this really slow man lumbering through this stuff, I'm like, I have no relation to this. This is not how I exist. Why are you pretending this is the way anyone behaves? Maybe some people do, but I don't. So I lose it. And so it's like this huge investment in all this stuff that does not matter to me. If it matters to you, that's fine. But that's yes for my take. From Watchmen, is there anything better than overtime playoff hockey? No. It's the best. I mean, God, when you manage, like, I love football, but every time a football game goes into overtime, it's a nightmare. It's like you hate it because it's like it just feels like, okay, we are no longer playing the game we were just playing. And hockey's just like, we're gonna keep playing the game that just happened until someone has another goal. I almost wish football would do that. It's like, hey, if you score with like 5 seconds left and you kick it off, maybe just keep going until someone has a higher score than the other person. If you wanted to have the ball at that point, maybe you should have played better during the game. Like, to me, that it's just having a coin decide it. From Dude Long Couch, are there any games you think you could play over and over again and never get tired of? There's games I go back to all the time for my entire life. I mean, Punch Out and Super Punch Out are definitely some of them. I think that they're just beautiful games with great pattern recognition and sort of like this. It's like getting right to the boss fights of a FromSoft game, and I like that a lot. But even those, I would definitely get tired if that's all I could play. I could probably play a game that was like has a lot of social features. Like if all my friends were in Minecraft all the time, I could probably have a pretty good time with that. Or that eco game I always talk about, something like that could be really cool. But I imagine anything I'd get tired of eventually. That's just the way I am. From Big Denim, gyro controls, Euro controls, yay or nay? I wish I could use gyro controls. I play with Splatoon with the sticks because I'm an old man with an inelastic brain, and when I try to use the gyro controls, I get confused. I think a big problem with this is that I play with inverted aim, and so when I try to do gyro controls, that doesn't quite. I mean, it should work, but it's just for some reason it's just enough of like where I hesitate, where it doesn't click into place all that well. From Sevward, would it be unethical to try and make a game with nothing but brown noise tones in it with the sole purpose of making people shit themselves? Listen, it depends on your purpose. Are you doing this as a research project? If you are trying to learn something about the human condition, then anything's on the table, in my opinion. Evil scientist, no such thing. No such thing as an evil scientist. From Warm Lettuce, did Louis Domingue convince you to buy a cookbook? I really considered it. I might still buy it. I've never made anything out of a cookbook in my trial. That's not true. Okay, if you count what's his name? What's the British cook, the chef that has a TV show? The one that thinks chicken nuggets are dirty. What's his name? Jamie Oliver. He had a DS game, and we're not a DS game. It was just a cookbook, and you could put the DS on its side, and I think you could like tell it to turn the page, and we totally made some stuff out of there. So yeah, made some Jamie Oliver stuff out of a DS. So Louis Domingue definitely has to be a better cook than Jamie Oliver. So yes, I'm gonna buy his cookbook just to like right that wrong. If you haven't watched the video about Jamie Oliver and him thinking chicken nuggets are dirty, look that up on YouTube. It's very good. It's from Folding Ideas. The guy that did the great NFT video. Right before that, he did this smaller video on Jamie Oliver's feelings about chicken nuggets, and it's very good. Yes, Watchman points out that Nashville might get swept. They very well might. So could Boston. Mock Bucket 62. When should we expect Square Enix to launch board Sora NFTs? I mean, any month now. They're going to wait until NFTs are a little bit more out of fashion before they do something like that. Then they'll really go all in. From Black Puma, any chance that we'll see that 1 versus 100 game in June? I hope so. I keep telling people this is my speculation on how that works. And God, I got to be careful with this because I speculated about the release dates of like some Nintendo remakes this past week, and turns out like everyone covered that speculation, just like Jeff Grubb making news, and they even said in the story Jeff Grubb's just speculating, but we need to write stories or we need to put up YouTube videos. So we live in a crazy world. But my speculation here, so don't go write a story about this, other than I have said that this game is in the works. 1 versus 100 gets announced at like the E3 showcase, and then they say come to the first game tonight. Just you're having so much fun learning about Starfield and all these big games, and we've spent so much time and money making this showcase. You have such high feelings that you want to go play a video game right now. Here's the deal: come tonight. We're gonna help you out. Come play 1 versus 100 with us tonight on Xbox Live. Everyone's invited. If you don't have an Xbox, well, here's the one day. Go ahead and just hop on, Xbox Cloud from your phone and play along. It's all right there. To me, that makes so much sense. I really hope that's the way it goes down. Yeah, here comes the clicks. The Unseen Shadow with MLB The Show now on Xbox Game Pass 2 years in a row on day one. You see license holders, NHL, NFL, etc., increasingly making their sports products available on Game Pass-like services on day one. There's a lot of stakeholders in these things. The thing with the MLB one is that MLB gets to act as like the sole publisher of the game outside of PlayStation. So that made it a little bit easier for Microsoft to make those deals. To get like NBA 2K on day one, you have to the NBA would have to be on board with it. That's true. But so with 2K and Take-Two and Strauss Zelnick, and there's just very little chance they're going to be able to make everyone in that chain feel good about it. These games do come to Game Pass pretty quickly, eventually, it seems like. And I think the sports games are definitely one of those things that make so much sense to try to spend a lot of money to get them in there as quickly as possible. That's an audience that I think would be very well served by a Game Pass-like situation. But other than MLB, it's going to be pretty hard to make that happen. Maybe NHL happens. That's like at the right size and scale where it's like EA and Microsoft have a good relationship. The NHL would just kind of be happy to like be involved. It feels like, I mean, as much as I love the NHL, let's be real. And then I think, it's just EA. And so it's like, not like all these other stakeholders. I think they could probably make that happen, but I don't know. That's just me speculating again. Speaking of NHL being like the number 4 sport in the country, Twitter drives me crazy with these fans. They act so insane that you wouldn't be able to tell it's like the least popular of the major sports. Like, you guys need to just chill. Just be happy that's back on ESPN. Like, stop acting like maniacs. Fans, man, fanboys of everything. They're the worst. From Zcrits, left door or right door? I don't know what this is in relation to, so I'm just gonna say left door. Left door. Theo Hux, what do you think is something in the games industry people aren't paying enough attention to? I don't know. For the most part, probably like the way that money is flowing. We talked about it a little bit earlier with the reason Embracer has so much money and stuff like that, and that's defines what has happened. Like the way that people are investing money is defining the way that people are making games. Like Embracer is willing to make these games because they have easier access to money. But that could change really quick, especially with interest rates going up in the United States. It's kind of going to drive issues across the world. It's going to drive down investment across the world. So I think that like just the way that the way games get funded and how that's changing is something that I think we could be paying closer attention to. I tried to write a little bit to that when I was explaining what was happening with Embracer and or more specifically why Square Enix wanted to get rid of those 2 studios. But even then it's like we don't have all the data, so it's pretty hard. We got to speculate a little bit. And but still, yeah, I try to write about that whenever something like this happens, try to explain why it happens. From Future Creep, whose dick do I gotta suck to get a new Burnout? I don't think that dick exists, man. I'm sorry to say. Need for Speed is a more popular brand. And now EA has a lot of racing brands. And so it's like Burnout, I think, gets like moved even further down the list. I think that they just keep making Need for Speed. They got Criterion making the new Need for Speed. And I'm sorry, that's just, I think this is the reality, is that they are just going to focus on that brand, and Burnout's going to stay on the sideline. From All the Dinos, they discussed it on the Bombcast briefly, but do you have any insight on why the Overwatch 2 beta launched when and how it did? Unrelated, in honor of the great Louis Domingue, what are some of your favorite all-time hockey names? Bob Probert is my favorite hockey name. Listen to that name, Bob Probert. Do you think that guy was like a skill player, or do you think he would beat the fuck out of you? You're right. He would beat you up. That's Bobby. I actually don't have insight into how and why and when Overwatch 2, other than the insight that everyone else has, in which that it's like they want to get this game out. They don't want to wait until the campaign stuff is done anymore. They have done some updates. They want to start testing this stuff, and they want to get Overwatch 2 back into having an active playlist, an active player base faster. I mean, it's all the stuff that makes sense. As far as like, why is it this? Why right now exactly? That stuff's probably just down to the details that I'm not privy to. From Dr. Venkman, dear Professor Snacks, do you think Square will come to regret partying with the IP and studios they sold to Embracer Group? Was this short-sighted on their part, or do you think it was the best option for all parties? I think it is a little bit short-sighted. That the money they got wasn't huge, but really what they were selling was risk. They're selling risk that they are no longer capable of withstanding, or they're no longer willing to withstand. They sold the liability of having a huge number of staffers and employees and developers at multiple studios, and then having to come up with a plan to turn that investment into all these people into a return. And they've shown repeatedly that they can't do that. They don't know how to do that. And even when they do, they're not happy with that return on investment. And as much as successful as those Tomb Raider games were, and as successful as like Deus Ex was initially or whatever in its return, those games, probably made like 12 to 15% return on investment, maybe. And that's, even then, that's not, massive, but it's pretty good. But they're like, okay, let's try to do something else to see if we can make a bigger one. And then they did worse. And it's like, well, then we can return back to the other thing, or we could just sell and wash our hands of it. In that situation, I think it's probably the right decision for them to sell, because if you don't have any ideas for how to use these studios, you probably shouldn't be in that game. Like, you should be out of that business. You should let someone take it over. That's what they did. I think we likely will see one or two of these studios succeed in a big way. I think that like the next Tomb Raider or whatever, and the next Deus Ex, one of them could come out and be pretty good. And then everyone will be like, well, I bet Square Enix regrets it now. The reality is Square Enix probably just would have struggled to make those games, period. Or given them the leeway that they needed to really happen. I think that's probably the reality. From Goodbye Reptilian, a lighter question for Sir Grubb. What's your favorite way to eat bread? I don't know. I like toast, I suppose. I like a lot of bread. I like it when it's a sandwich. Does that count? Just straight up a sandwich. My daughters very much like it when I make them Nutella toast. I toast up the bread, spread Nutella on it. It's their favorite snack. I mean, of course, Nutella's friggin' delicious. But yeah, that's what they really like. I'll kind of take it anywhere I can get it, really. I'm trying to eat much more protein, so for breakfast, I'm not like having anything like that. I honestly just eat like deli chicken. That's what I eat. And then, but then when it's time to have some bread, I'll probably just get a nice roll. I like a crescent roll, or one of those flaky golden biscuit things that you can get from the in the containers that pop and scare everybody. I like those. From Sosuke, Jeff, my Bruins are in shambles, but at least the Celtics are balling. Jeff, I need some come up a copium. Have you started to hear anything good about what ZeniMax Online is making? I mean, I've only heard the rumors everyone else is hearing about. They might be making a Star Wars game, or they might be making a Starfield game, like a Starfield offshoot. I don't know. Those are just rumors to me. I cannot confirm one way or the other. I can confirm the Bruins ain't shit, though. Bruins are garbage. I tried to tell you this, Sosuke, You were just in such denial. Oh, they're gonna win. No. God, I hope they don't come back now. From Agnes Damonium. Okay. Demonian? Okay. Agnes Damonium. I think I got it. Hey, Chef Jeff. That's a character from Abby Hatcher, one of my kids' favorite shows. Since none of the other staffers on this website appreciate the beautiful game of hockey, could you please do a hockey podcast with Dr. Hockey himself? Yeah, we'll see. I'll see what he wants to do. The Red Wings and the New Jersey Devils, that was the last game of the season for both teams, and we got on a call and watched the first period before we had to go do other stuff. But so yeah, I don't know. We talked about hockey. That was fun. We'll see. We'd have to bring. I think we'd have to bring in an honest to God Canadian at that point, or maybe a Swede. We'll see. From Corin the Owl. Hello, Mr. Snacks. What is the last thing to pack when moving? Let me think about this. This is a good question. I probably should have considered by now. The last thing I probably will pull out of the house will probably be the router, right? The internet router. Because I'm going to want Wi-Fi up until that last minute in case I need it for anything. So, and then it's not even my router. It's going to go back to Xfinity, but still, it's probably the last thing. Before that, for me, because I need to do my job, it'll be my office. So I wonder if like a lot of this computer stuff will get like put on like on a cardboard box or something on the ground. And then the desks will get all put away, and I'll just have like one monitor and the computer and the keyboard and the mouse, and that's it. Something. I guess I could just use a laptop at that point. So maybe it's tough to say. I don't know. I'm not good at this. In case you were wondering. So if anyone has any good answers for, charging cables, your shoes, the body's hidden in the walls, all great answers. Let's see. From Doug Foot. If Xbox is hesitant to acquire more studios until the scrutiny around the Activision deal dies down, is now the perfect time for everyone else to try and scoop up studios that they worry Xbox could outbid them on normally? Yeah, it probably is. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to act now. That's one. I think that's one. I think the other reason is interest rates are going up. So if you're financing the deal, you want to do that now rather than later. You also, inflation's still going to be a thing. So you have that's a double whammy. More in interest, your money's going to be worth less as you're repaying it and stuff. The interest actually helps. And the other side of that is interest. Inflation will push down the cost of your loans over time. It's a weird thing. Don't worry about it. I promise you the math works out. So, but that's another check mark for act now rather than later. We've said this for years now, actually. It's been like a year, almost 2 years maybe of saying stuff like this, and it continues to be true, and sometimes it's even more true. All of the market pressures are continuing to tell companies with a lot of money or positions where they need to acquire studios to act now. Act before things change in a way that is unfavorable. If they change in a way that's unfavorable, you're going to be happy to have this asset, and at the same time, you're going to be happy that you're not trying to make a move when money's more expensive or your money's worth less, or these studios are worth more because the competition, it continues going for, because there's fewer and fewer studios to actually acquire. So that now the studio that was worth this then is asking for an even higher price now. That's way out of track with inflation. So I think all of that market pressure continues to tell everyone to make a move now. I think that's why we're seeing all of these companies behave in the way that they're behaving. Square Enix trying to make itself lighter and more easy to acquire. I know everyone says, hey, wouldn't they want to have Eidos and Crystal Dynamics so they're more appealing? I mean, they may be more appealing to some, but having a bunch of employees that you have to pay, and then the things that they're working on have had low return on investment for the last couple of years, that's not an attractive proposition to many of the companies that want to acquire you. And also at the same time, the people that might be funding them, when you have to go explain yourself to say, hey, we are borrowing money for this, we think it's going to be a good investment. And they're going to say, well, what about these sides of the company that made, less than 1% profit margins last year? That's tough to explain. And so Square Enix can help the situation by getting rid of them. And now they are much better positioned for acquisition. And this is me speculating and based on, that rumor that we did hear that we cannot confirm, that Sony was going to go after Square Enix. Regardless of that, though, we know that these companies are trying to position themselves best for either getting acquired or not getting acquired. Like in Ubisoft's case, it sounds like they don't want to get bought up by some, so they are going to go to private equity instead, which is that doesn't make sense to me. But I don't know, Yves Guillemot. We did talk about how the Guillemots are, there's no other Guillemots there. He had two sons that were working at the company, and they both left. I think last week I said they only had one that was underneath him, and he left. Both Guillemot sons have left. So Yves is kind of on his own trying to figure out this path forward. But he's also making big moves to either, prevent an acquisition or whatever. But all the publishers are trying to do this because they know the time to act is ripe, and they want to make sure that they are as best positioned as possible to weather the storm or to get as much money as possible. All right, let's keep going. We're doing pretty good, but got a few more questions to get to. Let's see if I can get to them. From Looter Jennings, from Nerd Herder V1. Hey, Jeff, congrats on the move. Hope it goes well for you and your family. My question, any word or news on that multiplayer Resident Evil game Reverse? Sorry, I'm on mobile. Not sure how to confirm my premium account. Thanks. Yeah, no worries. I'm glad Looter Jennings was able to help. No word. They haven't said anything about Reverse. That's probably something that'll like reemerge at some event at some point, maybe. It kind of feels like the summer game, right? It kind of feels like the kind of thing you put out in the summer, and let people have another crack at Resident Evil while you wait to reload with Resident Evil 4 remake or whatever. But I haven't heard anything about that game. It's weird because it's like it was announced, it was supposed to come out, they delayed it, right? That's the timeline on that. And then it's just been dead silent ever since. So, yeah. From Cyclone B, any insight into Halo Infinite's slow development? Is it really just reduced crunch, or were they simply not fully ready to support a live service game? I mean, it was both of those things. Both of those things are probably a factor. I think there's speculation around the tools might be slow and difficult to work with. Might be, I mean, it feels like, the evidence, the proof is in the pudding with that one, where they know they need more content. It's the number one request of fans. And the one thing that we're not getting is a lot more content. So, they have a lot of people working on the game. So then what's the problem? Maybe the tools are slow. I could see that logic, but we haven't been able to confirm that either. My hope is they're able to figure this out, because every time I play the game, I have a great time. The problem is I just have been playing with my friends and like with our Discord community, and they have to want to play in order for that night to happen. And so if there's more content, more people want to play more frequently. But yeah. From Slugox, what's your ideal gaming sausage? If you could add ingredients from any game into one, what would it be? Mine would be a lean Souls-like meat with a spicy touch of run-based roguelite with a nice sci-fi flavor. All right, I like this question. I don't know if people will think of anything as clever as yours. I think a platforming game would probably be the meat, like a platformer, 3D platformer, or a 2D platformer. But with a really good, like an animated look. It has to look like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike or something like that. And then what's the spice? I don't know. You got your run-based roguelike game one is pretty good. That's actually a pretty good answer. I don't know. I'll just throw in 4X just to really fuck up this sausage. It's a 4X spice. All right. Well, from DX Annex, what's Clap Hands up to? Will we ever see a new Hot Shots Golf for PS5? Everybody's Golf didn't exactly butter my biscuit, and I hope they haven't abandoned Hot Shots entirely. Yeah, I don't know. They made Clap Hands for mobile, right? Clap Hands Golf for mobile. Seems like they're going in that direction because Sony is not interested in like re-upping the deal. That's my take on the matter. But who knows? That could change. Maybe eventually they do want a Hot Shots Golf game, and they're like, okay, come make one for us now. That could happen at any moment. It just hasn't happened yet. I think it hasn't happened yet for a reason, because Sony doesn't want it. From Adam 3 times, what's id Software up to right now? Yeah, let's see. They were working on Doom. So then what would they do next? I think my guess is they're probably like working on a couple things. I bet they're working with Machine Games on that, like rumored, what's going to happen next with Quake? Like in some way, they're probably working on that, but I don't know. From Goodbye Reptilian, do you think Capcom will ever resurrect Lost Planet given their official weird dino game now? Will they just will they just do some kind of futuristic Monster Hunter spinoff instead? They probably should just do Monster Hunter 2050 or whatever, right? just have a Monster Hunter game that takes place in the future. Maybe it already takes place in the far-flung future, and I'm just and I don't know the lore because I'm an embarrassing gamer and doesn't know anything about Monster Hunter. I don't know. Lost Planet feels like one of those ones that's tough to go back to. There's a lot of franchises that they could pull forward and do more with, and that's probably on the roster, but to me, it's probably low on the roster. Shameful. I think Lost Planet probably does not get another go. I think they probably just keep doing their other remakes. They are doing their weird Dino game now. I hope that does not prevent them from doing a Dino Crisis remake or two as well as this thing. Even though it has like weird crossover or whatever. But yeah, we'll see. From Corin the Owl, any chance Jeff Keighley shows a new Kojima game teaser this year? Probably a pretty low chance. I think it's probably pretty low. But, this year, maybe at the Game Awards, and maybe it's like maybe it's like a real Kojima teaser where it has very little to do with the game. It's more like a mood piece or something like that he edited in one afternoon or something like that. I suppose that's possible, but I would say this is a pretty low chance that we see like an actual game teased in any substantial way. Maybe they come out and announce the Microsoft deal or something like that. But even that, I feel like they might be hesitant to do that if they don't have anything to show. From Durfeef, what's up with Killer Instinct? I love the 2010 game, and Iron Galaxy also did a good job on the seasons. Is a sequel being worked on? So the state of Killer Instinct hasn't changed since the recent rumors. But I can't confirm they want to do another Killer Instinct and they're looking for a developer. We just don't know if they found that developer. There's all kinds of like words on the street about who they're going to work with on that game. They just don't have anyone internally that could do it yet. And Iron Galaxy, way too busy because they're working on that wrestling battle royale game, right? So we know they're not available, and yes, they're not working on the game. So then who would? I really like the idea of Bandai Namco coming in and working on a Killer Instinct in some way, but I don't know if that's realistic or going to happen. And, Nintendo would probably almost have the right of first refusal, so it's like that team that was working on Smash Brothers that you could maybe bring in to work on a Killer Instinct game, maybe. If Nintendo Bandai Namco would be like, Nintendo, do you want to work with this team again on anything? And Nintendo will probably go, yes. And I think there's rumors that they are doing that exactly. From Winship, should gamers rise up? I don't know. It depends on how far and, how far away the thing is they're going to rise up to. Yeah, I don't know. Sounds like work. From Beans CPM, have you ever had to hide a fart around any recognizable names in games? I don't know what this means. But I will tell you a story of one time I was at a party where I didn't know anybody. I hope I haven't told this story on here before. I was at a party where I didn't really know anybody. I don't know why I was there. It was in the middle of the day. It was a weird party, basically. But I was like kind of like watching the World Cup, and someone like heard me saying like, oh, I like soccer now or whatever. And so these like real soccer fans came over to me and were like, oh, well, what's your favorite Premier League club? And I knew one of the players I liked was on a club, but I couldn't remember the name of the thing. So I did the Seinfeld thing. I did the Costanza thing where he pretends to like sneeze a little bit when he's saying the word. So I was like, Fulton, Fulham. And I think it was either Everton or Fulham. And I think I was like mixing them up. And so I was going like Fulton. And it was the guy that played for the Columbus Crew. And they were like, they seriously did like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm like, oh, and then I just like walked away and left the party. I just had to go. It did not work very well. I don't think it ever worked for George Costanza either. But I tell my wife this story all the time because she loves it. It's her favorite story that I've ever told her about my entire life, which fair. All right. So yeah, fart around a recognizable name in games, yes, I absolutely have done that all the time. I'm doing it right now. From Looter Jennings, how would you improve a notoriously bad game like Aliens, Colonial Marines, or Duke Nukem Forever? Which, now that I say it, were both Gearbox joints. Yeah, probably just not make them a Gearbox. I don't know. I feel like you probably simplify Aliens, Colonial Marines, and like just think about what you're trying to do. And I don't know. You could almost just make it set in like a couple of settings. Just have it and not have the player move forward, but have the aliens come to get you. Okay? Aliens, Colonial Marines is just a horde mode game, right? You just make it horde mode. And then Duke Nukem Forever. You have to make it postmodern. You have to make it Duke Nukem. You have to make it like BoJack Horseman, right? Duke Nukem Forever should have been BoJack Horseman, where Duke Nukem is like this joke now, and I haven't actually seen that much BoJack Horseman. This is my understanding. Duke Nukem is like kind of like a joke, and you make it almost weirdly sincere of him trying to like rebuild relationships through gameplay. However you do that, I don't know, something along those lines. From from Easy Parisi, where do you stand? Is Yoshi's Island a good game or a bad game? It's neither. It's a great game. It's one of the best games on the Super Nintendo. It's one of the best games ever made. From World Dude, asking this on behalf of Simply Bagel, any updates on Arc Raiders? God, I would love to see more about Arc Raiders. We probably will get like an update on like a beta here pretty soon, and open like a public alpha or a private alpha that you have to get invites to. But no, I can ask about it and see. I'm very excited about that game. It looks very good. I think it's going to be a big winner. From Tristemd, can you please will NHL hits? Can you please will NHL hits into existence? I mean, I'll try. I've tried a lot. I think that a good arcade NHL game that's not just like baked into NHL, 20 or 20 whatever year is it? 2023, 2024. That would be great. It would go down really nice, but I don't know. NHL Hits would be fun. NHL Hits was good, wasn't it? I kind of almost just want like an updated version of the NES hockey game with like the skinny, the medium, and the fat players. Just do something with that again. Give that to those Mario Strikers team when they're done with that. What's the next level? Is that who that is? I can never remember their name. From Nanarpus, any idea what Ubisoft Red Storm is currently working on? It's my understanding that they're doing playtesting right now. I can't remember. What do they make, Red Storm? I feel like I just was like looking into them for something. Ubisoft Red Storm. I'll find out. We'll talk about it next week if I can find out. Because I don't know off the top of my head. They need to make a new Mario Baseball next, you're saying. Okay, that would be good too. I actually like that Mario Baseball game. From Christian, have you ever shook hands with Danger? No, but I do love that Rift Tracks short. I'm glad that we got one scene from that when we played Rift Tracks last night. So we played Rift Tracks. That's out now. If you want to play that game, it's fantastic. And there's so many good shorts and stuff that they're pulling clips from. And one of my favorites is Shake Hands with Danger. Ba-da-da-da-dum-dum. You got to go watch it. Just trust me. Go watch it. Go look it up. Let's get to a couple more here. From Feature Creep, Summer Game Fest and the Game Awards are going to be in IMAX theaters, I guess? Question mark. Didn't Jeff Keighley's dad like invent the IMAX camera or something like that? Am I making that up? Jeff Keighley's dad IMAX. Maybe I could have made that up. I thought his dad did something like that. I could just be making that up. From King Narwhal, have you heard anything about Larian Studio in St. Petersburg, Russia? All references to it on their site have disappeared. Could they have closed it? Thank you. Love the show. I mean, I bet they. I don't know. I'll have to look into it. That's a very good question. I bet that they closed it. They probably moved or something like that, or they are trying to keep a really low profile so they could figure out some place to move or do something else. Yeah, that's tough. Keighley's dad is the Riddler. Something like that, and that's how he got involved in the old Game Awards show. It's something like that. Just Keighley's dad. I don't want to I'm not trying to date. Let's see, David Keighley. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to. It's just like that. Yeah, he got involved in some of the stuff, but whatever. Jeff Keighley is his own man now and deserves all the success he's had. I like Jeff Keighley. Okay. From Savor, Dino Nuggets, yay or nay? I made some for my kids yesterday and they ate them all, so yay for now. The next time when they're leave 8 on their plate and untouched, it'll be a nay. From Mekon, so are you going to keep the broken playdate as a souvenir, Jeff Gersman style? Yes. Yes, I will. From Dixie Dean, Red Dead 2 was a good story. I think you said that before I started going on my rant. So, I didn't play it for the story that much. Here, he goes, Arthur had a great arc in Red Dead 2. Agree about the gameplay, though. Yes, that is my understanding as well, is that the people who got into Arthur's story about what was happening in there, and that does seem well done. And there's like some good... I watched a good YouTube video about how, like, there was a boring part of the game, which is not my problem with the game, but a boring part of the game, like, reflected that arc really well. And I agree with that stuff. Like, I think they understood the story they were telling. From Looter Jins, will Nintendo get into NFTs 5 years from now when everyone else has abandoned them? Yeah, but you'll have to like cut off the top of like video game boxes and send them in to get the NFTs. They'll do some weird analog shit with it that doesn't make it. And yeah, you'll have to send in your friend code. It'll be weird. All right, let's do just a couple more. We're gonna get out of your faction. Jeff, what do you make of Blizzard slapping the Warcraft name front and center on their new mobile game, especially considering they stripped Heroes of Warcraft from Hearthstone just a few years ago? Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a change in strategy, right? It's a change in direction of like how they want to use this stuff. Like maybe they like want to withhold the Warcraft name for just the best stuff. It's like, well, no, the Warcraft brand is something we want to like put everywhere because we need successes. I don't have much of a problem with it. I think it's fine. I think they could have called Hearthstone, a Warcraft game. I don't think it would have made much of a difference. So I think it's fine. I'm fine with it. From Arjun N, just got here. So maybe you already talked about this. They just announced Summer Game Fest live showcase for Thursday, June 9th. No, we didn't. That's okay. That sounds right based on what we've been hearing. So yeah, there's stuff happening all that week, it seems like. So try to talk about it more here pretty soon. From Martin G. Fluff, hey Jeff, any idea what Stoic Studios is doing these days? The Banner Saga 3 was released in 2018. Yeah, that Stoic is working on that that one of those secret Microsoft games. I think that's the one that's Belfry, Project Belfry, right? And they're doing, it's going to be kind of like a side-scrolling, maybe a beat 'em up a little bit, maybe not exactly a beat 'em up, but it's going to have that sort of action, and the animation will have sort of a Ghibli style to it. That's what I was over here. We talked about this on that show a few months ago now, so yeah, we'll maybe we'll do another update on that soon. That's one of those games that could pop up at E3 and get released later this year. So Stoic could be ready to go here pretty soon. From Jaws for Real, we still looking good for Ragnarok this year. I'm gonna keep saying yes until they say no at this point. I think it's yes. I think it comes out this year. All right, we actually just have a couple more. We'll finish them out, then we'll finish up. From Cyberspace Cat, why are we seeing such an uptick in large acquisitions? What are the potential ramifications long term? Real quick, I talked about this a little bit earlier. We're seeing an uptick in large acquisitions because it makes a lot of sense right now. I'll just say the big points again. Inflation, the cheapness of getting, credit and stuff like that. Although that's changing fast, but that's another reason to act now. Companies are worth more than they were ever worth, and they're going to be worth more next year because of inflation. So, and because of demand from all these other companies trying to act. So if you act now, you're probably going to pay a little bit of a lower price. And then what are the potential ramifications long term? I don't know. Embracer could implode. That would be a problem. I think whoever could sort of woo Embracer into like their way of thinking. So if Microsoft could say, hey, for every single one of your games after a certain month, and for some games right away, come into Game Pass. We'll set up an ongoing deal. That could be like a significant boon to something like Game Pass. In terms of like how games get made, the people that are getting paid out for these acquisitions right now that didn't start these studios in the first place are probably going to leave and go start their own studios. And then we're going to have another fresh batch of studios out of nowhere. We are already seeing it. We talked about Arc Raiders a little bit. That is a studio that was founded by EA executives, and they took a lot of cheap funding because a lot of cheap funding was out there, and they have 250 people already before they released one game. That's unheard of. And they're about to release Arc Raiders, which seems like it's going to be one of the biggest releases of the year. So if you're worried about like, of all these IPs and all this talent going to one company, that's not going to be a problem. They are going to shoot out and keep creating new things. And this is kind of a cycle in the way this stuff works, which is that's why I do this dance. Vertelli, I just remember that Rise 2 was rumored sometime last year. Apparently, it was mentioned in a leaked document. What's up with that? I don't know. It seems like the kind of thing that, what is it? The Crisis team, Crytek. It seems like the kind of thing Crytek would always be thinking about maybe doing. Let's do that. But I don't know how much you can rely on Crytek to actually get a game out. From that Pinguino, how much value do defunct IPs like Eternal Sonata or Infinite Undiscovery actually hold? Would it cost more than a stick of gum to get those IPs? A lot of the cost from that sort of stuff comes from getting the lawyers together in a room and figuring that stuff out and having them negotiate. Once the lawyers are in the room and once the negotiators are having conversations, the prices go up and down probably pretty rapidly. But getting that process started is a cost in and of itself, and a lot of these companies just aren't even willing to do that. So right now, I would say less than a stick of gum, but if you actually wanted to go through with acquiring them, no, much more than that. From FGDAS, any word on how Apple Arcade has been doing? I was wondering if there was a chance of any more exclusives making the jump to other platforms. They will continue to make the jump to other platforms. What was the most recent one that was kind of like a big deal that everyone's looking forward to? I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, none of those games are going to stay on there forever. As for how it's doing, it's hard to say. I think it's doing pretty okay. From Lil John 2137, anything to the Ubisoft Plus to Game Pass rumors. I heard, it feels like forever ago, that was going to happen. And then since then, I've heard that's not exactly going to happen, but maybe more Ubisoft games themselves will come to Game Pass. Most recently, I've heard Ubisoft Plus not coming directly to Game Pass. From Viaz, excuse me, this is the last one. Any tough on Fortnite? Any thoughts on Fortnite coming to xCloud for free without subscription? I think it's a good idea, but I don't know. I have no idea if that's going to happen. It seems like the kind of thing that like Epic and Microsoft have a good relationship. If they wanted to make that happen, I think they can make it happen really quickly. Okay, all right. I'm gonna go try to find some Japanese curry. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Apple Arcade has Fantasian. That is one of the ones I was definitely thinking of. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I had a good time answering all your questions. Good time hanging out with you. Good time just riffing on all your ideas. We will be doing another show next week, so please tune in for that. Until then, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. I'll see you next time.